Why does society struggle to accept transgender people? Have you ever wondered why simply being yourself can be seen as an act of bravery? For many transgender individuals, living authentically isn't just a personal journey. It's a battle against societal rejection. Consider this. Over 40% of transgender adults in the U.S. report attempting suicide at some point in their lives due to this discrimination and lack of acceptance. Why is it so difficult for us as a society to allow everyone the basic dignity of living their life as their true selves? In today's world, conversations about identity are more visible than ever. Yet transgender individuals continue to face immense barriers in expressing who they truly are. Transgender identity challenges our traditional ideas about gender. But these individuals are simply asking for what we all seek: the space to be ourselves without fear of judgment or harm. Isn't it time that we, as a collective, learn to embrace these varied expressions of humanity? Despite growing awareness and increasing visibility, societal misconceptions about transgender people remain deeply ingrained. The outdated belief that gender is rigidly tied to biology continues to dominate, dismissing the lived experiences of transgender individuals as invalid, unnatural, or fabricated. Such misunderstandings are not harmless. They perpetuate cycles of stigma, discrimination, and inclusion, impacting nearly every aspect of daily life for transgender individuals. These misconceptions fuel systematic barriers that transgender people must navigate every day. From being denied basic health care, to which every individual is entitled, to facing barriers in assessing education, housing, and stable employment, the consequences of these biases are profound and far-reaching. According to a 2021 survey conducted by the National Center for Transgender Equality, nearly 30% of transgender individuals reported being denied health care or receiving subpar treatment solely to their gender identity. Simply, the unemployment rate among transgender people is 3 times higher than the national average, and almost 1 in 5 transgender individuals have experienced homelessness. The challenge goes beyond a lack of access. It's about a denial of humanity. Transgender individuals are often forced to defend their identity and existence in a world that frequently refuses to see or respect them. This constant fight for recognition and dignity creates significant mental health challenges, with studies showing that over 40% of transgender people have attempted suicide at some point in their lives, compared to just under 5% of the overall population. Addressing these issues is not just about policy or education. It's about acknowledging the humanity of transgender individuals and the basic rights they deserve. Without a conscious effort to break these cycles of misunderstanding and prejudice, transgender people will continue to face significant and unnecessary obstacles, perpetuating harm and inequality within our society. I want to talk about something deeply personal. It's a story that reflects just how complicated, painful, and beautiful life can be. A story about my daughter. Imagine knowing from a young age that something just feels off. You know who you are inside, but you're growing up in a world that doesn't seem ready or willing to see you for who you truly are. That's what my daughter faced. When she was 2 years old, she already had this spark, the inner truth that none of us could fully understand yet. While her older brother played with superhero costumes and dreamed of wrestling matches on TV, she gravitated toward dolls, her sister's clothes, and even my shoes. It wasn't that she didn't enjoy the typical things boys did her age, but football, soccer, no. Gymnastics, that lit her up. And still, we didn't understand. We couldn't see the full picture. Not yet. When she was 5, I remember her standing by a wishing well at the park. She was young, innocent, and completely sincere, with all the earnestness in the world. She said, "I wish I were a girl." Looking back now, that moment speaks volumes, doesn't it? It could have been a turning point, a call to action from my husband and me to dig deeper, ask questions, and truly listen. But like for many parents, we were scared. Society didn't make that kind of wish easier to hear or easier to honor. For years, she carried the truth on her own, silently. She tried to fit in with her peers, tried to live a life that felt more normal to everyone else, but never fully like herself. And then, at 16, she sat us down. She told us she was gay. I remember her crying, her whole body shaking, as she managed to get the words out. And my husband and I told her everything you would hope a child hears in that moment. We love you no matter what. You're ours. And nothing will ever change that. But her truth didn't end there. 2 years later, she opened up to us again. This time, she told us that she wasn't just gay. She told us that she was transgender. She wasn't just our son trying to fit into a world of conformity. She was our daughter, a young woman trying to find her way to herself. I'll be honest, that hit me in a way I wasn't prepared for. My husband and I struggled. I looked for therapy, leaned into support groups, and grieved what we thought we'd lost. It's not easy. Parenting a transgender child is a journey, and in some ways it requires mourning what was perceived to be and embracing what is. But what weighed heavier than our personal fears was the world, the barriers, the hurtful stigmas staring down her every day. Suddenly her world seemed harder. I think back to her high school years. It's not just rejection from peers that she faced. It was a systematic rejection. Take the bathrooms. To use the gender-affirming bathroom, she had to go to the front office, get a key, endure the judgment of the hallway as someone escorted her back to class. Think about that for a second. What message does that send to a child? That their identity needs approval, permission? Are they something to be monitored and controlled? When she sought healthcare, specifically a procedure to feminize her features, a surgeon refused her care outright. Why? Because she was transgender. And that's the kind of stark reminder every parent of a transgender child encounters. There's this underlying question. What are people afraid of? Why does my daughter's existence provoke hatred or fear? But I'm not here to share just the pain of her story, because her journey has always been bigger than the obstacles. When she graduated from high school, she found her community, a place in college where people truly saw her, a place where she could walk through the campus without fear, where others understood the battles that she had been fighting, and where she felt free to just be. Surrounded by people who accepted her for who she is, her confidence grew, her world widened, and for the first time, joy wasn't something far off. It was hers. I've seen firsthand what acceptance can do. It doesn't just save lives, it transforms them. My daughter didn't just survive rejection, she overcame it. She found her dignity, her future, and her pride. For me, as her parent, what this has taught me is simple. Our children don't need to be fixed. They don't need to be changed. They need love. They need unwavering support. Because when they know that they're loved, when they know someone sees them for everything they are, anything is possible for them. This is the message I hope we can carry forward. Not just reflect on the pain rejection causes. Let's actively work to create a world where unconditional love, support, and inclusion become the norm. Because my daughter and every transgender child out there deserves nothing less. One of the most fundamental facts that society needs to embrace is that children don't choose their sexuality, gender, or identity. They want to embody. This is not about preference or selection. It's something intrinsic, something that they are born with. Yet time and time again, we see individuals in society stigmatizing, criticizing, and even outright hating those who are LGBTQ, and particularly people who are transgender. This kind of behavior is not just harmful, it's rooted in fear, ignorance, and the unwillingly to accept reality. Take a moment to reflect. If you call yourself a Christian or religious individual, how can hatred for someone's sexual orientation or gender identity coexist with the core tenet of your faith, which is love? If your faith teaches compassion, acceptance, and love for all of God's creation, why would you single out those who identify as LGBTQ or transgender for cruelty, exclusion, or judgment? Let's consider a simple yet profound biblical message found in John 13:34. A new commandment I give to you, that love one another just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. Where in this scripture does it say to love some but not others? Or to love only those who conform to your understanding of identity? It doesn't. Being cruel or saying hateful things to people because of their identity runs counter to what the scripture calls for. It is important to note that transgender individuals have existed not for decades, but for centuries. Historical evidence shows that gender-diverse individuals were present in societies across the globe, from Native American Two-Spirit traditions to gender-conforming identities in ancient cultures like Haraz in South Asia. A study published in Nature Communications argues that diverse gender identities predate modern Western constructs, proving that they were no fad or temporary movement. Statistically, about 1.6 million adults ages 18 plus in the United States identify as transgender, according to the data released by the Williams Institute at UCLA in 2022. Moreover, about 300,000 youth ages 13 to 17 identify as transgender, showing that these numbers aren't random. They reflect real identities lived by many. Additionally, these individuals face staggering discrimination, with nearly 50% of transgender people reporting harassment or mental distress due to societal prejudice, according to the national surveys conducted by the Human Rights Campaign. Most of the stigmatism and resilience to transgender identities, and broadly the LGBTQ and the other communities, stems directly from fear. Fear of change, fear of misunderstanding, or the fear of losing control over the societal norms. But here's the truth. Being transgender is not a disease, an illness, or something contagious. It's not a threat to society. It's simply a reality of human diversity. It is a part of the spectrum of identities that has been here for centuries and will persist long after our time. If you find yourself struggling to accept others because of fear, then perhaps the true question is, what is it that you fear? If you claim to act out of religious faith, wouldn't you believe that acceptance is more truthful and godly response than rejection? Maybe, just maybe, loving thy neighbor as thyself applies even here. Let's work together to stop stigmatizing transgender people and instead lean into empathy, understanding, and acceptance. Because in the end, love, not fear, is what truly builds stronger communities. It's clear that society has a long way to go in creating a world where transgender individuals feel safe, valued, and understood. The journey to acceptance begins with breaking down harmful stereotypes and embracing the complexities of our shared humanity. Every person deserves the right to live authentically and without fear. Isn't that the foundation of freedom?